On today's Maker Mashup Maker Showcase, we're talking about a Lego 3D printer build. On today's Maker Mashup, we're going to be talking about a Lego 3D printer build. Now, those of you that have followed the channel for a while now, you know that we've produced a number of 3D printer build videos that walk you step by step through the 3D printer build process, and I've put a card up at the top so you can check out those videos if you've not seen them before. So one question we get a lot on the channel based on our 3D printer videos is, how do I build a 3D printer if I don't have access to a 3D printer to print the parts that are needed to build a 3D printer? And that's a very fair question. If you don't have access to a 3D printer, it's really hard to make a 3D printer. Now, I had also put together a video that I have at the top here that shows you how to build it out of some hardware store items and some wood. It's really not the best way to build a 3D printer, but you certainly can without having access to a 3D printer. So several months back, one of our makers that is in our channel Discord, which is like an online makerspace, had reached out saying that she was going to be building a 3D printer out of Legos. So when Stacy said that she was going to be building a 3D printer out of Legos, I was a bit excited and skeptical at the same time. I've seen robots in Mindstorm and things created with Legos before, but I never thought that a Lego printer would be sturdy enough to produce quality prints. So after a few months, Stacy had gone ahead and said she completed her build, and I was super excited by that. So I asked her, and she said that she would join us here on Maker's Mashup and tell us a little bit about her printer. So with all that said, let's get to work.
My name is Stacy Zabinski, and I'm a doctoral student at Boise State University. And the main reason I stress that is because this was a project for my doctoral program. So I'm an educational technology major, and when you get to a certain point in this doctoral program, you have to do an innovative experience project of your choice. And since I am a Lego Master Educator and I'm always pushing my students to build more and stretch those Legos further than they can go, and a 3D printer enthusiast, I thought this would be a really great mashup. And so I immediately was like, oh, I definitely want to make a Lego printer.
The Lego Group represents a billion-dollar industry with offices worldwide. Billions of Legos are produced each year, which equals about 36,000 pieces every minute. Children around the world use these Legos to build all sorts of creative things. Lego also has many themes to it. You've probably seen Disney Legos, Minecraft, and heard about robots being built from Mindstorm and Technic themes. But how do you start building a 3D printer out of Legos?
I cannibalized another printer for parts, and I was using that as the basis for the size, and the actual building of it and the design of it was just what I felt would be the most rigid and structurally sound for actual mechanical movement. My biggest fear was that it would move fine while I was moving it, but once I had mechanical movement, it would start to fall apart. So I started by measuring the bed and the linear rods to determine what dimensions I needed for where the Legos had to be. And originally, when I was planning the project, I thought I would start with building the scaffolding and building the structure, and it turned out to be completely opposite of that. And I ended up building the bed first and the supports for the bed and all of that, because it's not even connected to the rest of the printer. It is completely separate from the printer. What it's connected to is actually the base plate.
Building a 3D printer from the ground up has many challenges. Any maker who's assembled their own 3D printer knows a lot goes into just the assembly. Designing one from Legos added additional challenges to the overall design of this amazing printer.
Biggest challenges was rigidity. So I got the structure built for the carriage to move on, but once I got the weight of the carriage on it, everything flexed and moved. I ended up having to rebuild the support for the Z-axis movement, I don't know, 7 or 8 times until I finally got something really strong enough. And I was working with Lego Technic pieces for that because they have the nice little connectors and beams, and found out that Lego Technic is a perfect fit for M3 screws. So that worked out really well. So machine screws were a big savior on some of the parts where I just couldn't get them to not pull apart.
You might think that most of this is glued together, but in fact, it's not.
No, it is all loose bricks. There's no glue at all. The only thing that is more permanent than the Legos is just, I've got some horizontal threaded rods that I just use locking bolts in those tall towers for rigidity. Everything else is completely loose. I can snap it all apart. It's all Lego.
The total build took over 3,000 Lego pieces. The 3D printer structure is only half the work. She still had to wire the electronics to make this printer work, and the approach she took to the electronics enclosure is full of Lego creativity.
So when I first started wiring it, I just had the board sitting, just literally sitting on the table while I was getting everything wired. And once I finally got it wired, I built a little housing, and I've got the 12-volt power supply on the table, but I flipped it upside down so that its heat vents and its air vent for the fan are facing upwards. And then I built a little housing around it. And then on top of that is where I put the board. And I put the housing, and again, I built just a little Lego housing around it. The vent for the blower fan, I printed on this printer. I'm a K-6 teacher, and what I'd really like is I'd love for one of my students to be able to build this. And if it's all well and good to have 3D printers and be able to use 3D printed parts, but I wanted to stay true to the only use what you have. And I couldn't get the Legos to stay on there, so I finally decided, all right, I'm gonna 3D print a part, but I'm gonna 3D print it on this printer like I would have my students do.
I think the printer that Stacy has put together here is really a testament to maker ability. She took something that she had around the house, which happened to be some Legos. She built a 3D printer, and now she's sharing that design with other people in the community so they could make their own 3D printers as well. Plus, having a working printer proves that it can be built with something as simple as Legos. And I think that is exciting because I know all over the world people have access to Legos, but they don't have access to 3D printers. And with some mechanical parts and some electronics, you can build a 3D printer out of Legos yourself. So now I'm curious, what do you think about the 3D printer build? Is this something that you would recommend to someone who doesn't have a 3D printer? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear back on what your thoughts are on this community build. I think it was super exciting, so I really want to hear from the community on what you think of this 3D printer build. Now, if you're interested in talking with other makers like Stacy, I've put links down in the description to our Discord channel, which is really just a very large online community of makers, not just for 3D printers, for really any sort of making activities, electronics, CNC. We talk about just about everything in our makerspace. So with that is going to bring the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you mash that like button and don't forget to share and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you would like to help support the channel, consider checking out our Patreon page. Patrons receive early and exclusive access to content on the channel. So with that, I want to say thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.